Get out of my office and get out of my company. You are done here. That's what my stepmother, let's call her Linda, screamed at me in front of the entire staff. She stood there, wearing my late father's watch, holding the CEO title she never earned, looking at me like I was a piece of gum stuck to her expensive shoe. She told me that the company, the one my father built with his bare hands, the one I had managed for 10 years, was hers now. She said she didn't need me. She said I was a relic of the past and a drain on the payroll. I stood up slowly. I didn't yell back. I didn't beg for my job. I didn't even remind her that she didn't know the first thing about manufacturing. I just smiled, packed my single box of personal items, and walked to the elevator, because Linda made one critical calculation error. She was so focused on reading the part of my father's with that left of the business shares, she completely skipped over the paragraph about the assets. She didn't realize that while she might be the CEO of the company, I was the owner of the building it was standing in, and her lease? It just expired 5 minutes ago. To understand how sweet this revenge was, you have to understand my father. He was a brilliant man, but he had a blind spot for women. He started a high-end custom furniture manufacturing plant in the 90s. It wasn't just a shop. It was a massive operation. Heavy machinery, huge ventilation systems, specialized power grids. I grew up on that factory floor. I swept the sawdust when I was 12. I ran the CNC machines when I was 18. By 30, I was the operations director. The crew respected me because I could do their job better than they could. Then came Linda. My dad married her 3 years ago. Linda was a character. She had never worked a day in her life. She was a lifestyle consultant, which mostly meant she spent my dad's money on trips to Italy and designer handbags. I tried to warn him. I told him she was only interested in the bank account, but he was in love, or at least he was lonely. When my dad passed away suddenly from a heart attack 6 months ago, my world shattered. I lost my best friend and my mentor, but I didn't have time to grieve, because the day after the funeral, Linda walked into the factory wearing a power suit and demanded the keys to the executive office. The reading of the will was a nightmare. Linda got the majority controlling interest in the company shares. My dad wanted to make sure she was taken care of. However, my dad wasn't completely blind. He knew Linda wasn't a business person. So he left the real estate, the land, and the massive factory building itself. To me, he figured that way I would always have a passive income from the rent, no matter what happened to business. Linda didn't care about the building. To her, real estate was boring. She wanted the company. She wanted the prestige. She wanted to be the boss. For 6 months, she made my life a living hell. She fired the accountant who had been with us for 20 years because he wouldn't let her expense her spa treatments as office supplies. She stopped buying safety gear for the guys on the floor to cut costs. She treated me like an intern. She would interrupt my meetings to send me out to get her coffee. Specifically, a soy latte with 2 pumps of vanilla. I was the operations director, and I was doing coffee runs. I swallowed my pride. I did it for the crew. I did it because it was my dad's legacy. I tried to fix her mistakes quietly in the background so the company wouldn't go under. But you can only push a loyal dog so far before it bites. The breaking point happened on a Tuesday. Linda called an all-hands meeting. She stood on a podium and announced that she was bringing in her son, Kyle, to be the new VP of Strategy. Kyle is 22. His only strategy involves playing video games and crashing his car. She then pointed at me. And since Kyle will be handling the big picture, we don't need redundant management. Opie, your salary is too high for the value you bring. We're letting you go. The room went silent. The guys on the floor looked ready to riot. I looked at her. Linda, are you sure you want to do this? You know I handle logistics, the client contracts, and the facility maintenance. She laughed. We can hire a janitor to handle the facility. We don't need a 6-figure director for that. Pack your things. Security will escort you out. That was the moment. The janitor comment. I realized she truly had no idea. She thought the company and the building were the same thing. She never bothered to look at the monthly expense reports where it said rent paid to Opie's holding company. I walked out. I didn't say a word about the lease. Why interrupt your enemy when she is making a mistake? I went home and turned off my phone. For 3 days, I just relaxed. I finally mourned my dad properly. Meanwhile, at the factory, chaos was brewing. I later heard from the foreman that Kyle, the new VP, tried to change the production line and ended up overheating the main generator. Usually I would come in and fix it, but I wasn't there. Then came the first of the month, rent day. Since my dad was the owner, the lease agreement between the company and the landlord, Naomi, was basically a gentleman's agreement. It was month to month. I sat down at my computer and drafted a very formal legal document. IT was an invoice. It was a notice to quit, an eviction notice. I stated that since the tenant, the company, had severed ties with the landlord's property manager, me, and since there was no long-term lease in place, I was terminating the tenancy effective immediately. They had 30 days to vacate the premises. Now, remember, this is a heavy manufacturing plant. You can't just move these machines in a pickup truck. It costs hundreds of thousands of dollars to move them, and you need a specialized building with industrial power. Moving in 30 days was physically impossible. I mailed it via certified courier. 2 days later, my phone rang. It was Linda. I let it go to voicemail. She called again and again. Finally, I picked up. "What is this?" she screeched. "Why did I get a letter saying we have to leave? This is MY Company." I spoke very calmly. "Yes, Linda, it is your company, but it's inside my building. And since you fired the only person who knew how to maintain the facility, I'm afraid I can't trust you as a tenant anymore. You're a liability." "You can't do this," she yelled. "Your father left this business to me." "He did," I agreed, "but he left the bricks and mortar to me. You have 29 days left. I suggest you start packing." "Oh, and Kyle can help you carry the boxes." The silence on the other end was deafening. She finally realized what she had done. Without the building, the company was worth nothing. She couldn't produce the product. She couldn't fulfill orders. She was dead in the water. The negotiation was short. Linda tried to sue. Her lawyers took one look at the deed and the lease agreement and told her to go home. She came to me, crying this time, begging to stay. I gave her an option. I would buy her shares of the company for 10% of their value, or she could move her machines out by the end of the month. She had no cash to move the machines. She had no choice. I bought my father's company back for pennies on the dollar. I fired Kyle immediately. He was actually relieved. He hated the job anyway. I rehired the accountant. I gave the crew a raise. Linda is currently trying to sue the estate again, but she has no money left for lawyers. She wanted to be the queen of the castle, but she forgot one important rule. It doesn't matter if you were the crown if someone else owns the castle walls.